In the face of a more and more extreme Republican Party, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is reiterating her call, her mantra, that no, all we really need is just a strong Republican Party. Here she is.
I mean, the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody on the Senate side cares, and the Senate cares about climate? Some of them do, and they talk about it. When it comes to the votes, it just isn't there. They just aren't there. So rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them. I want the Republican Party to take back the party. Take it back to where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, you cared about the environment, and all. Hey, here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party, and we do, not a cult.
What an absolute embarrassment. Nancy Pelosi is embarrassing. What a joke. Establishment Democrats, is that your leader? Is that your leader? Somebody who prefers a strong Republican Party? Is that the focus of the Democrats now? Yeah, we don't want to defeat them. No, we want to help make them stronger. We want a strong Republican Party. And by the way, earlier in that video, she said the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody in the Senate cares about climate? You just pointed out the problem of corruption. The fossil fuel industry is weighing in significantly with money. Yes, they have bought congressmen. They have bought Republicans. They have bought Democrats. That's why they do the bidding of their donors. You should know this, Nancy Pelosi, because you do the bidding of the donors most of all. My God. But no, I look, I can see some of you already saying, look, Jeff, you don't understand her argument. She just wants the Republican Party to take it, to go back to what it used to be. You know, back before when they were reasonable. You know, those reasonable Republicans. When was that? When were the Republicans ever reasonable? I've never seen a Republican Party that was reasonable, not in my lifetime. And reading up in the history, seems like they've always seemed to be trying to take away people's civil rights. You know, it's the same Republican Party that's been anti-gay for a very long time and have been fighting against Roe from the moment the Supreme Court at that time. Yes, even the conservatives in the Supreme Court that approved it, right? There were still right-wingers, Republicans, that were fighting against this and trying to overturn it, and it took 50 years for them to do, but they finally got it. Now, I know Nancy Pelosi is ancient, but even back then, they never cared about the climate. Never cared. Never cared about women's bodily autonomy. Never cared about any of that. And I know some of you might point out, well, Jeff, you don't understand. How is it that Nixon then created the EPA? Nixon's a Republican. And he yet created the Environmental Protection Agency. You know why? You had environmental groups that put massive amounts of pressure on Congress to actually do something. You had the left. You had a strong left. That's what a strong left wing got you. Strong left wing got you unions, workers' rights, and the EPA. What's the strong right wing gotten you? Nothing. Tax cuts for the rich. That's what it got you. We had a strong left in this country that actually used to fight and win on issues. They were the lions. The right wing was legitimately afraid of them. What happened to them? What happened to the left? The money. The money. Look, it goes back to Nixon, by the way, and the Supreme Court. Back in 1971, Lewis Powell Jr., he wrote a memo that became the blueprint for conservative corporate rule. And it called for a complete takeover of society at every single level to benefit corporations. Nixon, he saw that memo and he said, oh, good, you want to legalize corruption? Here, I'm going to nominate you to the Supreme Court. And guess what? In 1978, Powell wrote the majority opinion in a little known Supreme Court decision in First National Bank versus Bellotti. First National Bank of Boston versus Bilotti. That overturned a Massachusetts law restricting corporate contributions to referendum campaigns not directly related to their business. He overturned that. That decision directly led to Citizens United. Powell also joined the majority on Buckley Valeo, which struck down limits in independent expenditures by outside groups. Powell and the court, at that time, opened the floodgates to massive amounts of money in politics, and with it came the corruption. And then Ronald Reagan gets into office, and he broke the back of the unions. He gave massive tax cuts to the rich. They used that money to buy politicians, thanks to Powell and the corrupt court. And over the last 40 years, that money didn't just go to Republicans, it went to Democrats too. You want to know why the left today is weak? It's the money. It's the money. Follow the money. There are very few on the Democratic side that take more money than Nancy Pelosi. More corporate money. Not a master legislator. No, she's just a fundraiser, and she's prolific at fundraising. That's why she wants a strong Republican Party, so that she can fundraise off them. And they can work together to further corporate rule and make more money for their donors. That's it. That's it. She wants, by the way, she's talking about climate change there. Oh, we want to do something about climate change. That's rich coming from somebody who had once called the Green New Deal the framework that would get us away from fossil fuels. She referred to that as the Green Dream or whatever. The Green Dream or whatever. She wants to talk about women's rights. You want to talk about codifying Roe? Why didn't the Democrats, when they had a supermajority in Congress, codify Roe? Supermajority. She was literally Speaker of the House during that time, between 2007 and 2009. She was Speaker during the Obama administration when they had a supermajority. This is from a 2009 article in the Washington Post. But even as Mr. Obama had delighted abortion rights activists, he had dialed back some earlier ambitions. In 2007, he promised Planned Parenthood that the first thing I'd do as president would be to sign the Freedom of Choice Act, which effectively codifies Roe v. Wade. Now he says the bill is not my highest legislative priority, as he put it at a recent news conference. Huh. Interesting. It's just not my priority, you know? A codifying Roe v. Wade? I mean, why would I do that? Why would I actually honor a promise that I made in the campaign trail back in 2009? And by the way, do you know what his real priorities were? Bailing out the banks after the financial crisis and enacting the Republican Heritage Foundation healthcare plan that Mitt Romney used in Massachusetts. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, right-wing plan. Weird. I guess maybe Nancy Pelosi figured that in order to make a strong Republican Party, that you have to have weak Democrats who refuse to fight. Because that's certainly what we have. Democrats lose over and over again to psychos, to people who are insane, monstrous people, terrible people. Why? How do they keep losing to these idiots? And you realize, oh, at least Republicans aren't lying about how monstrous they really are. No, they're out in the open about it. And that's enough. They get enough like-minded, monstrous people to vote for them, while the Democrats do absolutely nothing to support you. Democrats promise to work for you, and then they do nothing, absolutely nothing, when you hand them the levers of power. It's excuse after excuse after excuse. Oh, it's the parliamentarian. Oh, it's the filibuster. We can't do anything about that. Oh, it's process. Oh, you just need to vote harder. Vote harder in the next, the next midterm election. Just vote harder. By the way, we're going to use our massive amounts of resources to crush every single progressive who might actually have a shot at defeating Republicans, and then put up our mealy-mouthed, milquetoast, centrist, garbage candidates that are flooded with corporate cash and corruption than lose to insane people, because we would rather have insane right-wingers in Congress than a progressive, because at least the insane right-winger takes the same donations that we do from the same people. But there's more, by the way. When asked about Joe Manchin, speaking of those terrible Democrats, Pelosi responded, Joe Manchin and I are Italian-American. We're Catholics. We have our friendship. I've helped him, even though I think clean coal is an oxymoron. And I've told the coal miners that I do believe in getting their benefits, whether it's pension or healthcare. And so we've worked on those issues together. And we have had our conversation. But right now, this conversation is a Senate conversation. But we're just optimistic and hopeful. About what? We're optimistic and hopeful that Joe Manchin would not. What? What are you hopeful about? What are you hopeful about? Joe Manchin owns a coal company. You ghoul. You clown. You're the worst Democratic Speaker of the House I've ever seen. Ineffectual. Disastrous. You think Joe Manchin is going to put his personal finances in jeopardy by supporting climate change legislation? Hell no. Hell no. He ain't never going to vote in favor of climate change legislation because, again, that would hurt his money. That would hurt his money. It's about the money. Just like how Nancy Pelosi doesn't support Medicare for all. Why? Because of the money. She gets massive donations from health insurance companies, hospital groups. And again, she talks about the right to choose, but then supports and endorses Henry Cuellar, an anti-choice conservative Democrat who fired a woman, by the way, a staffer, when she was 28 weeks pregnant. No, she's corrupt and she supports corruption. And everybody paying attention knows about this corruption. No, they know. In fact, look, there are some responses here. I'm going to read them. This is filmmaker Bree Newsom. She says, why does this country need a strong Republican Party? What even is the basis of that statement? Who is supposed to appeal to? I'm in my mid-30s, and attacking civil rights is all I've known Republicans to do. Because it's all they do. It's all they do. Lindsey Boylan, former Cuomo aide who accused the New York governor of sexual misconduct, said this, Speaker Pelosi, they never cared about those things. I know she isn't dumb enough to think this. She's just betting that many of us are dumb enough to buy it. True. Max Berger says, Republicans try to overthrow the government and leading Democrats keep talking about them like a friend they wish would text back more quickly. Kate Willett posted this, at least Democratic leadership is defending our right. Hold up, sorry. Getting word that they've decided to defend Republicans instead. Because of course they do. And finally, journalist David Roth said this is weird and embarrassing on the merits, just as useless abstracted nonsense from a very rich and very powerful octogenarian. But it's inexcusable given that the Democrats are technically in power right now. How is it that when Democrats are in power, it always feels like the Republicans are winning? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird how that works out? They have all the levers of power, and yet Republicans still getting off all these wins.